Copy that. Good luck. Godspeed, Artemis II. Let's go.
On April 1st, 2026, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in more than 50 years, humans traveled to the moon and came back safely. This mission, called Artemis II, was not just a test flight. It was a turning point for humanity. 4 astronauts flew farther than any human in history, traveled over 690,000 miles, and proved that we are ready to return to the moon, this time to stay. The journey had 12 important steps. This is their journey, step by step. Step 1 was the liftoff.
Engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1.
On April 1st, 2026, the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Booster ignition and liftoff. Artemis II now bound for the moon.
Inside, 4 astronauts sat strapped into the Orion spacecraft, waiting for the ride of their lives. The mission was about to make history as the first crewed lunar flyby in over 50 years, setting records for diversity and farthest human distance from Earth.
Houston, integrity, good roll pitch.
As individuals, each of the crew members was about to set individual records of their own. Reed Wiseman was the commander of the spacecraft. As commander, he led the crew to set the record for the farthest distance humans have traveled from Earth, surpassing the Apollo 13 record.
Cabin of integrity here as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth.
Victor Glover was the mission pilot. He became the first African-American astronaut to travel beyond low Earth orbit and to the moon.
We call amazing things that humans do moonshots for a reason, because this brought us together and showed us what we can do when we put, not just putting our differences aside, when we bring our differences together and use all the strengths to accomplish something great.
Christina Koch was the mission specialist. She became the first woman to travel to the moon and beyond low Earth orbit.
It was very smooth. There was a definite difference when they separated and we were just on the main engines, but just a steady rumble and a great ride.
Jeremy Hansen was the other mission specialist. He became the first Canadian and first non-US citizen to fly to the moon. As the engines ignited, the rocket shook violently and rose into the sky. Within seconds, it cleared the launch tower and humanity was on its way back to the moon. The second stage was engine cutoff. Just minutes later, the engines shut down. Suddenly, everything changed. The astronauts were no longer being pushed into their seats. They were floating. This was the beginning of life in space. During this phase, the crew tested systems and adjusted to microgravity. But there was one real challenge: motion sickness. Even trained astronauts can struggle in their first hours in space. The next stage was the perigee rise, or you may call it staying in orbit. During this stage, the spacecraft performed its first critical maneuver.
To hear it. Whoa. So that's that is separate. That is the
Without it, they would fall back to Earth. This burn raised their orbit and stabilized their path, allowing the mission to continue safely. The fourth stage was the apogee stage. This involved a longer engine burn that pushed Orion into a much higher orbit around Earth. Now, they were tens of thousands of miles away, far beyond the International Space Station. This was the last step before leaving Earth behind. Then came the proximity operations, or testing the future. At this stage, something historic happened. For the first time, a human manually flew Orion spacecraft in space. The crew tested how the spacecraft handled, an essential step for future moon landings. They also began daily routines, eating.
We actually just gathered for our first meal together.
Exercising and even sleeping in space.
But sleeping here is, it's actually sort of comical. Christina has been sleeping heads down in the middle of the vehicle, kind of like a bat suspended from our docking tunnel.
The sixth stage happened a day into the mission. It was called translunar injection.
1 minute left in the translunar injection burn. Everything continuing to look good.
Here, the crew made a critical decision: go to the moon.
These live views coming from Orion as it looks back on Earth, leaving high Earth orbit and beginning its journey to the moon. We are now 230 miles above Earth.
The engines fired again, pushing the spacecraft out of Earth's orbit. From this point on, they were committed.
Integrity copies, and your Integrity crew is go for TLI. With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth, we choose it.
Just like the astronauts of Apollo 13, they followed a free return trajectory, a path that would carry them around the moon and back home. After the translunar injection, and for the next 4 days, the astronauts traveled deeper into space than any humans in decades. They lived inside a small capsule, ran experiments, and shared messages with Earth. They also monitored their health, tracking sleep, stress, and how their bodies reacted to deep space. Meanwhile, Earth grew smaller and smaller behind them. On day 6, they reached the moon. This is where the lunar flyby happened. The spacecraft flew around its far side, completely cut off from Earth, no communication, no contact. During this moment, they became the most distant humans ever, over 250,000 miles from Earth. They captured stunning images and even dedicated a lunar crater during the mission.
And we would like to call it Carol, and you spell that C-A-R-R-O-L-L.
For a brief moment, they were alone with the moon. The 9th step was the journey home. After the flyby, gravity from the moon slingshot them back toward Earth. The return trip was quieter. The astronauts rested, reflected, and continued experiments, including studying how space affected the human body at a cellular level. This data will help future astronauts live and work on the moon, and someday Mars. Then came step 10, which involved module separation in preparation for re-entry. As Earth came back into view, the spacecraft prepared for its most dangerous phase. The crew module separated from the rest of the spacecraft. Only Orion, the small capsule, would survive the intense heat of re-entry. And that brings us to the next step, which is step 11, re-entry.
And we have crossed the threshold, now entering the Earth's atmosphere.
The capsule slammed into Earth's atmosphere at over 25,000 miles per hour. Temperatures soared, communication was lost.
This will be a 6-minute blackout period. No voice, no data from the crew.
For several minutes, the astronauts were surrounded by plasma, a glowing shell of fire. Everything depended on the heat shield. It worked.
Houston, Integrity, we have you loud and clear.
Big cheers from the viewing room here in Mission Control as voice communication reestablished with Commander Reed Wiseman.
Then, the final step was the splashdown. During this step, parachutes deployed.
Main chute deploy.
The capsule slowed, then splashdown.
Splashdown confirmed.
On April 10, 2026, the astronauts safely landed in the Pacific Ocean.
Jubilation here in the flight control room. The first crew member is out of Integrity,
ending their historic journey.
Splashdown confirmed.
Recovery teams quickly brought them home. They had completed the first human journey around Moon since 1972. In conclusion, Artemis II was more than a mission. It proved we can go back to the moon and go further. It tested the technology, the people, and the future of space exploration. And next time, we won't just fly by, we will land.